Statement 20, the last statement of this chapter in the Gongchik. It says that Jigten Sumgon maintains that it is a greater fault to not obtain the vows than to damage them. Yeah, so as I said, on first look, this is really counterintuitive. In fact, we have heard, many other places, maybe even sutras, words of the Buddha that says, take your vows, don't break them. Breaking those vows are very serious. You should take very seriously. Don't break your vows. Don't break your vows. Don't break your vows. Yeah? In fact, there are even stories of how in the Vinaya, there are, I cannot pretend that they're not there. But there are even stories in the Vinaya where it says, if you, examples of like a monk, on the verge of breaking his no sexual activity vow, on the verge of breaking that, he quickly, ran back outside and told, I think, some people. He said, "Okay, you are my witnesses. This moment on, I give back my vows. I'm not keeping those anymore. I'm no longer a monk." Then he ran back into the house and did whatever he did, Then later, some people complained to the Buddha, and the Buddha, according to this story, actually said, so that was good. Because, he gave back the vows. That was good. So you have stories like that. So definitely, I think we cannot understate the importance of when we take vows. It has to mean something, It has to mean that, I am determined to do my best to keep my vows, to keep my promise, to keep what I say I'm going to do. Or in this case, what I say I'm not going to do anymore. So to keep the vows seriously, I think that is never in question. Jigten Sumgon, I'm sure, emphasize a lot, actually, the importance of keeping the vows that we have taken. So this statement should not be understood as, in a vacuum, like without context, right? It should not be understood without a context, in a vacuum, that seems to be saying, take these vows, and then if you break it, it's okay, okay. It's not saying that. It's not saying that. What it is saying is, what it is saying is that don't, on the account of fearing that you might break, that you might not live up to these vows, that then you keep avoiding taking them. It's good that we think seriously about these things before we go request. Can I have these vows of trainings? Can I have these precepts of training, which I'm going to train in? But don't keep thinking, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know. Don't let that impede. And more, I think more importantly is this statement here is based on the understanding which Kyobpa has I think in a very unique way, has expressed like, and don't think, oh, I didn't take them, then no problem, I didn't promise to keep this vow or that vow. So then when I do things, that are against the vow, there's no fault. He says that cannot be the case, Yeah. So let's look at Khenpo Kunpal's commentary. Furthermore, this is on page 150. There are some who say that since it is a great fault to take vows and not keep them, it is better to not take them from the beginning. And there are some who say it is a greater fault to disregard the vows while knowing you are doing so, making it grave to study the Dharma while not being able to adhere to what should be adopted and what should be abandoned. And so here, I think in Khenpo Kunpal's commentary, he's saying, there are even people who say, no, I don't want to know. No. Don't tell me about the 10 non-virtues, because now that I know the 10 non-virtues, I have to follow avoid the 10 non-virtues. Please don't tell me. In fact, I think it's very true. There's a lot of lay people. Not you are different kind of lay people, When we say lay people, like those of us who are born in Buddhist culture, we're all lay people, Just like many of you are accidentally Catholics, I don't know. It's like, okay, Easter, mom, dad, grandpa, okay, I'll go and sit there. Oh, it's Christmas, okay, Many Asians, are Buddhists in the same way, accidentally Buddhist. Although from a karmic point of view, it's not accidental. Karmic point of view, it's not accidental that, many of you are accidentally Catholic either. Now that we understand karmic causality, there's no accidental. But so to say, right? So many Asians, when they hear so much about, if you take vows, you better be able to keep them. So if you cannot keep them, better don't take them. Or, better not know. Once you know, and you don't do, that's very bad. Yeah, better not know. So then a lot of people, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Because now that I know, then I have the burden of knowing, right? And Kyobpa Rinpoche said, knowing is never a burden. Knowing the truth is never a burden. Yes, in the short term, it will feel like a burden, in the sense of, like we say, guilty conscience, But actually that guilty conscience, Kyobpa Rinpoche says, it's good. It's like the fear of driving yourself off the road will prevent you from driving yourself off the road. I'm sure all of you, if you drive, you have experienced before, at least once in your life, maybe more than once. You're driving on the highway a long distance, feeling a little tired, and then you just maybe lost 1 second, even 1 second, And suddenly, you like your car has gone on the side, and then like after that, right, for the next 3 hours, you're wide awake. So that's like the guilty conscience. It's a good one. If you don't have guilty conscience with regards to these vows, then you are so much further away from ever getting out of this mess. So here Khenpo Kunpal says, and there are some who say it is a greater fault to disregard the vows while knowing you are doing so. So making it very serious, to study the Dharma while not being able to adhere to it, and therefore say, I don't want to study. Okay, I don't want to know. In fact, in Chinese, we have a saying along those lines. Maybe many cultures. In English we have ignorance is bliss. Right? Ignorance is bliss. Yeah, it's idiot bliss. It's like saying, not knowing the rules for driving makes driving simpler. Yeah, simpler until you get in a mess. Then in Chinese we have a saying, May would know this, like 不知者不罪. Like if you don't know, then there is no fault. If you don't know that you're not supposed to do that, and then you have done that, oh, it's okay, you didn't know, no fault. So we have a lot of sayings that show that, regardless, Buddhism or not, we go about our lives, with this idea that it's better not to know. Of course, there is actually a lot of things in the world that I agree better not to know. We're not talking about you needing to know everything, but knowing principle of karmic causality, that is what we have to know. And how the principle of karmic causality plays out in all the different situations, the Vinaya collection, in some ways you could say, have the most detailed information. And so I don't know if any of you went to the links that I shared, last week or something like that. Translation of the Pratimoksha in the Theravada Pratimoksha, and all the seemingly minutiae. You might think that it's like so detailed, minute details, but that is the finer points of how the principle of karmic causality plays out. And thanks to all these incidences that happened during the Buddha's lifetime, and the Buddha was around to clarify, we know better. Because it's said that although the general principle of karmic causality it can be summarized by plant an apple seed, get an apple tree, plant a mango seed, get a mango tree, right? Grow poison ivy, get poison ivy, grow spinach, get spinach. Eat spinach, don't touch poison ivy. General principles of karmic causality, simple enough. Causality plays out at the micro level. It is said that is an object of knowledge that is only fully understood and fully seen by fully awakened ones, meaning Buddhas. Buddhas like Buddha Shakyamuni. For the rest of us, we cannot see. So sometimes they even say, in the Gongchik tradition especially, it says, you and I think, and so this example, I don't know if we need to take it so literally, but the underlying point, I fully accept. The literal, I'm still not there yet to fully accept that, And what is this? It says, you and I think, for example, this mug, right? Then I put it down here in front of me. You and I cannot see what consequences this have. Except that the obvious consequence, which is I actually put it on the table, on the table in front of me, rather than mid-air, letting go of my fingers and go kaplunk. So I can only see that I avoided, right, the mess of this being released right now and falling down and causing a mess. You and I can only see that. But they say Buddhas can see way more than that. You can say that Buddhas can see, on the surface of this table, there are microbes, which a microscope can also show, but I don't see, you don't see. And Buddhas can see the effect of placing this cup onto this spot with that particular set of microbes there and how they are affected by. As opposed to putting it over here or over here. So now, like I say, the underlying principle, the take-home lesson in general, I fully accept. And then for me, the implication is, without it being too tight, without you walking around terrified of doing anything whatsoever, what this point tells me, for me, is saying, don't think, seemingly meaningless actions don't have any implications whatsoever. So this helps to cultivate, this helps in the task of cultivating awareness, alertness, and mindfulness. Yeah, so it's not very it's not very productive if we bracket away mindfulness to, four foundations of mindfulness, 16 steps, only when we sit down we go, oh, now mindfulness. That's just the formal training of mindfulness. The formal training of mindfulness is so that we have a more even at all times mindfulness. So with at all times mindfulness, it is said, again in the Vinaya, an ideal monk or nun is one who doesn't just kind of mindlessly do this and that, mindlessly like, Really, I've met, monks, nuns who are so refined, in their, in just the way they carry themselves. But no force, this is really, mindfulness are so established, it's natural, So you don't see them like restlessly twiddling things, like just, do this, do that. I was going to say twirling their hair, well, no hair, monks or nuns. but you don't see, like some of these really, you don't see them just simply like, sitting down, just picking up whatever, and just like twirl, 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 twirl. No. Because, and no, like, shaking leg and shaking hand, like, la, 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 la. Again, I don't want you to think, oh, now I have to like, very tight. Don't smile. Don't be spontaneous. No, that's forced. Doesn't work like that. It has to be from cultivating more appreciation for understanding this principle, more cultivating, being aware, being alert. That, is very helpful, very useful. Yes, May.
Would you say that that kind of cultivation raises their baseline mindfulness higher, so that for them, I'm one of the very guilty people who like to fidget, look here, look there, pick this up, put that down, and think. I'm very easily distracted. So I admire people who minimize that kind of fidgeting. It's very calming to be in their presence, I think.
Yes.
So one way I'm thinking, based on your explanation, is that their baseline of calmness is higher, kind of like an athlete who has trained. Their heart rate is more efficient.
Yes.
So I find that a very useful way of thinking about it.
Yes, absolutely, totally. It's a whole other level, So like in the presence of such persons, right? They may not say a lot of Dharma, use a lot of Dharma teachings, They might not appeal to you intellectually. But when you are in their presence, even you like you also calm down because they're not fidgeting. And they did not arrive at not fidgeting by forcing. And maybe at some point they tried that way, but I would not say that is the way to go. So none of this, right, should gives you, should. And this is not to encourage you to be paranoid. You even picking up a pen and how I put down the pen has subtle karmic consequences that I don't know. How am I going to put down this pen? No, don't become paranoid like that. But what you can do is don't just like chuck your pen down. Just put it down. And if there's a pen in front of you when you sit down, when you see, observe how, now I'm going to, without even thinking, I'm going to pick it up and twirl, 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 twirl. And usually, when we look into that, there's something going on, right? Subtle, but there's something going on. Like when we get nervous about some situation, we tend to do something. When we get anxious in another way, we tend to do something. When we are uncomfortable, we do something. So that's what we mean by all our actions. There's something going on. So gaining awareness that there's something going on, and then being able to know, okay, I'm getting restless. This will also allow us to be then, develop more awareness and to be able to anticipate. Okay, I'm starting to get annoyed. Time to go for a run. Good. Of course, the bigger plan, the longer term plan is not to always run, whether metaphorically or literally, whenever we feel something, coming up that is negative. At the beginning, but eventually it is to be able to let that pass through without leaving traces. The only way they can pass through without leaving traces is you don't have much here to retain them when they are passing through. So the bigger the I, and me and mine, the bigger the stuff that gets retained as they're passing through. The more we have dissipated the sense of I, me, and mine, the easier it is that they just pass through and not leave anything. Although that is a great fault, continuing, like those things are faults, it is not like they say. This is not, but it is not like they assert. Now, one does temporarily fall down to the lower realms because of damaging one's vows. And so there's no doubt about that. As in, like, Kyobpa doesn't say, oh, damaging vows, it's okay. No. One does temporarily fall down to the lower realms because of damaging one's vows, but one will attain awakening due to the cause of having kept them earlier on. So in other words, right, also don't forget, for all the time that you have taken them and kept them, there's a power to that. We often only look at, what is most recent. In fact, when we hear about maybe some famous Buddhist teacher or whatever, they secretly have been doing something else, our mind is all stuck on, their downfall. But it should not be like that. And even with ourselves, when we make a mistake, then we're very hard on ourselves. But then, what about all the other times that we have been able to keep? So don't forget that, due to the cause of having kept them earlier on. And not only that, actually, let's see if he talks about this. Therefore, Jigten Sumgon maintains that it is a greater fault to not obtain or take the vows than to damage them. Thinking, quote, since I have not taken vows, it is all right for me to act like this. One will not recognize one's fault, will not give rise to regret, and so on, and thus, out of great afflictions, one will carelessly perform more non-virtues into the future. Because of this, one will not be liberated from the lower realms, and one will destroy one's possibility to attain awakening. I'm starting to not like this 111 business. It is kind of translation stuff. In Spanish, do you use this expression one? Like this is kind of you have something like that too? Oh, okay. And your Dharma text, your translators also do things like this? One. Have you all noticed? Or you don't read Spanish Dharma text? In English, it's very common, I think it's becomes like Buddhist English. It's kind of like, a more neutral or a more, I don't know, maybe like one should not, right? One. Increasingly, I find this kind of a little distant, I think it should be you. Because of this, you will not be liberated from the lower realms, and you will destroy your possibility to attain awakening, then it's like, hey, you. Hey, you over there. Who? You who's reading this. Who? You who is hearing this. Anyway, nothing wrong with the translation. It's just reflecting on how language, how we can make it, it's about this, Furthermore, it is said in the White Lotus of Great Compassion Sutra, Ananda in the future time, a degenerate time when the sacred Dharma is disintegrating, some of those who take ordination in my teaching will, after taking ordination, take their child by the hand and roam with the child from bar to bar for a full scoop of beer. Ananda, all those disciples of this sacred Dharma of mine will all attain complete nirvana within this good aeon. Yeah, it's like, whoa. So in this sutra, the Buddha says, even if in the degenerate age, which is not to say Buddha is encouraging people to do this, okay? It's saying that, when things get so bad, so much so that, people would get ordained, and then right after that, take their kids to roam from bar to bar begging for a scoop of beer. They've all become alcoholics, So things that absolutely monks are not supposed to do, have kids and drinking. It says, but Buddha says, during those times when things have gotten so bad, if they have even this kind of karmic seed that ripens into thinking, I should ordain, even just that little karmic seed, it will lead to them becoming free. The reason is also stated in the 10 Wheels of Kishtagarbha Sutra. Even if a champaka flower gets old, it is much better than other kinds of flowers. Even if a fully ordained monk has damaged his discipline and engages in non-virtue, he is superior to all those with extreme views, meaning he is superior to all those having wrong views. The wrong views of thinking, all the wrong views that we have discussed. Likewise, there are great benefits in studying the Dharma. Concerning non-virtue, the non-virtue done by a deluded person, meaning a person who doesn't know, is greater fault than the non-virtue done by a learned person. As it is said in a sutra, even if you fill all the realms that I see with my Buddha eyes with jewels and offer them to the Buddhas, if you do not listen to Dharma teachings like these, it is only a small merit, I tell you. Often so many sutras talk about the great merit of making offerings to Buddhas, making offerings to Buddhas, making offerings to Buddhas. And it says, even if you are able to fill this whole realm, and the realm to the extent that Buddhas can see, which is way more than what you and I can see, even if you fill them with all jewels and offer them to the Buddhas, the merit don't equal what you and I are doing now, studying the Dharma. So here it says, don't have the attitude of, oh, no. I don't want to know about the Dharma because I probably cannot follow it. And then if I now know and I still don't follow it, that's very bad. And here, again, it's saying, no, it's not like that. So the non-virtue done by a deluded person is a greater fault than the non-virtue done by a learned person. Again, this is kind of counterintuitive, often we are more judgmental. Oh, you should know better. Right? Yeah, I get it, especially, I think, those of us who pretend to be teachers need to take this other point to heart, you should know better to ourselves, There has to be a higher standard, so to say. But of course, in another sense, no, the standard is the same for everyone. Standard is the same for everyone. But in another context, yes, you should know better, But this teaching is given to us so that we don't go about judging other people. Oh, well, you should know better. And also recognize, yeah, for that failure that has now, occupied our mind about this person, there's also many other qualities that this person have been working on and working hard on. And don't forget that. And Vasubandhu said, even when an ignorant person performs a small non-virtue, he goes downward to the lower realms. Even when a learned person performs a great non-virtue, he will fully abandon the harm. If a lump of small iron is small, it sinks to the bottom of water. But if you make it into a container, even though it is big, it floats on the surface. Now we're talking about. Now this is an interesting nuance. Yes, karmic causality is fixed, but conditions can be changed because karma is also not fate, okay? So this example here is a very interesting one. If you have iron, like a mass of iron like this, right? You drop it on water, kaplunk. Same lump of iron, now you flatten it out. You put on water, it doesn't float. Now conditions have changed. So this analogy is to be applied in a very careful way. This is to be applied in what way? Knowledge and wisdom can change a lump into a flat sheet. So that one sinks and the other one floats. Another example that I've already used many times from the sutras, which is the one that, a monk says, once you have done some karma, that's it. Especially negative karma, that's it. Inevitably, this negative karma will ripen as suffering. And you have to face the suffering. That's it. When the Buddha heard this, he said, don't, wrong understanding, he says. If that was the case, then it renders spiritual life completely pointless and useless. So remember, he gave the analogy. He says, this spoonful of salt, put it in here. Is it possible to drink this? Oh no, too salty. I said, same scoopful of salt, put into a swimming pool. Can you drink that water? Yes, no more salty. Well, maybe other reasons why you don't want to drink the water in the swimming pool, but so then Buddha says, this small cup is like an untrained mind, which there actually it's saying, right? When the capacity of the mind is very small, very tight, when the sense of self is very strong, very tight, it's like a small cup. So a scoop of salt in there. is overwhelmingly salty. And even a scoop of sugar, which most of us enjoy, is overwhelmingly sweet. And then we get so lost in the sweetness. Ha, 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 ha. But if it's a reservoir, salt or sugar put in there, it doesn't change the reservoir much because its capacity has become greater. That's a trained mind. Likewise, right? You used to, before your mind is so stable and trained, when things go wrong, when you lose something, you lose someone, they hit you very hard. Now, mind that is more trained, the equivalent happens. You're not so shaken. Reality is unmistaken. We also should not think, oh, Jigten Sumgon is saying, absolute. Not like that, no. Because it's also important to know, to remember, to understand. No, we can change, But we have to do the right things to make the change that we want. So concerning the confession of transgressions, restraining, repairing, and thereby restoring the vows, the reasoning is stated in the basis for ordination. Whoever does non-virtuous actions can block their result through virtue. Just like the sun and moon emerge from clouds, he will be shining in this world. So this is the point. You can change. You can change. Moreover, as Rigzin Chodra stated, so now he quotes Dharmakirti, one could elaborate on each topic with extensive explanations of four possibilities and so forth concerning the sameness of the natural and established misdeeds and so forth, but that would be too much. He's just saying, there are further explanations to elaborate on this if you want to know, but here, that's too much. And then he says, let's move on. But he's also saying, there are people who get into these things, they start, talking about four possibilities and this and that, and he says, and part of what his Chodra is saying, and Khenpo Kunpal quoting Chodra, is he says, some of these divisions into this and that can get us lost in the details and forgetting the underlying principles. And in that sense also, it's too much, no need to talk about those things. Chodra's commentary actually is answering some criticisms from other viewpoints, criticism of this. And then Chodra shows, how, no. Yes, in some cases, in many cases, combing through the material with a fine comb, as we say, can give us more understanding. But then sometimes that activity of finely combing, we can get so lost into all those technical details that we forget a bigger underlying principle. It's like in English we have this expression, we see only trees, and we have lost the forest. So with this, we finish, this chapter 3.